Welcome to Ask the Accountant, the podcast that is made for you. Weekly podcast live Mondays from 8:30 a.m., released on the podcast service of your choice on Wednesdays. Your main weekly hosts, Aaron, Patrick, and Johann. Got something to ask? Submit your questions below or ask during the show. Podcast loading. We are currently getting everything set up behind the scenes, so sit back, relax, and we will be with you in a few seconds. Enjoy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Ask the Accountant. As always, we are here at 8:30 a.m. on a Monday morning, myself and my co-host Aaron Patrick, to bring to you the latest news, insights, and thoughts on the accounting industry. Aaron, how are you, and how was your weekend?
Hello, everybody. Yeah, good, thank you, Aaron. Good, thank you. It was a lovely sunny weekend, just, enjoying all of that sunshine. We went for a nice little walk with the dog. Again, sunshine, glorious sunshine, I'd like to say. So I assume for you it was lovely sunshine as well, was it not?
I was promised F1 to start with. That cancelled. Then I was promised it's all right, you'll be able to spend the whole weekend out in the garden enjoying it because we're in for nice weather. And all we got was sunshine. Overcast, grey, drizzle, and rain. It was grim. And it still is grim. I'm just looking out my window now. It's still equally grim. Not a sunny weekend. We weren't as lucky as you, Aaron. But yeah, someone's got to have the sunshine at some point, I suppose. Even Derby.
I mean, we were very close to saying the B word, very, very close. But we thought, you know what, it's not fair on everyone else. Like, if we were to say it instantly would be thunderstorm. So we thought, we'll let everyone have a bit of sunshine. But yeah, I can't promise that for the rest of the week. And in fact, it's bank holiday weekend next weekend, isn't it? So
it is another one because we've not had enough of those, have we?
I know.
Looking forward to June and July when we don't do bank holidays. It's all a lot less hassle. Right. Well, before we get into the news, let's say good morning to some of the people in the group. As always, Mr. Paul Whitehouse is in the group chats. We've got a LinkedIn user saying morning. Kirsty is saying morning all. Good morning, Kirsty. Another LinkedIn user saying good morning with a sunny face, I think. Hopefully it's sunnier where you are. Morning, Merlin. And Paul had a lovely weekend with nice weather down south as well. I've got a friend who lives down in Hastings, and they were having the time of their lives this weekend on the beach, enjoying the sun. I wasn't jealous and bitter at all. But yes, so moving on from the weather, but I suppose every now and then it's nice to remind everyone that this is a British podcast where we discuss British topics like the weather.
We could have a whole podcast on just weather if we wanted to, don't we?
I mean, we could. I don't think it would be as insightful and as enjoyable as a whole topic, as a whole podcast on AI, for example, which I've been playing with again this week. And I'll tell you what, AI can sell. I've had AI redo a load of my email templates that we use. And it's rewritten. One of the emails it's rewritten is our proposal email, which goes out with our letter of engagement and stuff. That's a snazzy bit of kit. I was well impressed. I've been showing everyone it. It's like, look at this. It did it in seconds.
What platform is it? Is it the Microsoft one or which one?
So this is a app on my iPad called AI Chat, which is powered by Chat GTP 3, I believe. So it doesn't understand anything post 2021. Although, did I see rumors in the media that they might be letting it look at the internet again soon? But apparently Bing has no issue. Not Bing, sorry, because Bing looks at.
No, Bing has full access. That's why Bing has that little advantage. It has full access to current internet.
Which one's the one Google's launched?
Oh, yeah, some weird name. Yeah, you're right.
Google's got access, and Google apparently can do a very good blog on the latest tax affairs and the latest budget or statement from the government, from what I'm told, which Chat GTP 3 and 4 can't do because it's not got access to current enough data. So I think that's forcing them to have to turn it back on again. But anyway, before we go into that whole AI conversation, that's not the topics of today. Kirsty's just put in the comments, if you need some sunshine, Johann, try watching Selling Sunset with a bit of LA sunshine. Very nice. Yeah. Bard is the Google one. There we go. Yep. Google Bard. Thank you, Kirsty and LinkedIn users. Yeah, Google Bard. I went to try and play with it, but it's not activated on my account or something. So I went back to the 1990s and just used Chat GTP. But hey ho, we can't all have everything, can we?
I do recommend the Bing one though. Like I've been using that for a long time now, and I'm blown away with how good it is.
Okay, I'm gonna have to try the Bing. When did you last go? Oh, I'll check Bing. I'll ask Bing.
Well, this is it. This has made it relevant.
It's all been Google for the last 10 years. So to suddenly have to use the word Bing.
We went from Ask Jeeves to Google and never looked back, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, Ask Jeeves. AI-powered Ask Jeeves. How cool would that be? The ultimate butler. But yeah, so yeah, I've been playing with AI and had a great time this week redoing email templates. It's amazing how quick it does it and to what quality. It does go on a bit like me. So at least it sounds even more natural that it's coming from me. But yeah, right. Let's talk about actual news in the world of accounting, shall we, Aaron? So first of all, we've got a product release. Who'd have thought it? The timing's confusing me, if I'm honest. I'd have thought they would have announced this, 2 weeks ago at Accountex? And I went to their stand and they didn't utter a word about it. So
really?
Not a whisper. But yeah, so what are we talking about? So Dext has launched an expense product, basically. So you can give every one of your team members access to basically a new user type on Dext, where they can have a login, take a picture of a receipt, which adds it to their personal expense claim for that week, month, period, whatever it is. It's got all the OCR technology, but also in uploading it, they explain what it was for and who potentially had pre-authorized the expense. So yeah, nice little feature. I think it brings Dext back into relevance for expense management in the bigger companies potentially, where it's a competitive space. And I think because Dext had that credit card, prepaid card thing, didn't they, from Capital on Tap at one point, which was going to be, but it was maybe 5 years too soon, or 3 or 4 years too soon, maybe. So they dropped it. But yeah, Aaron, have you looked at this? Have you got any thoughts on it?
I haven't looked at it for the simple reason that I don't use Dext as much as I should do. I know how powerful it can be, but I'm still stubborn and still in the receipt bank days where a few bridges were burnt back then, put it that way. So I wasn't aware of this. My concern for it is that when we went to see their last product update or product release, which was their, quote unquote bookkeeping solution, I wasn't impressed at all. And I felt like if that's the future of what their new products are going to look like, I'm out. It was my initial reaction to it. I hope that they've been able to do a better expense management solution than QuickBooks Advanced was, because that was ropey at best. So as good as QuickBooks Advanced was, and as good as we really like the product, their expense solution was, completely and utterly missed the point, in my opinion. And so I think, and for what you've already said there, it sounds like they've got enough substance there to at least be better than that, which was a very low bar. So that seems absolutely, what we need. But I still I don't know. Expense management to me is one of those where either you just grin and bear it, and it's Excel sheets or paper or whatever you're going to do, and it, you just send it in. Or what I like to use is directly with the payroll. So if I've got expense management and it's connected directly to the payroll, we use QuickBooks Advance payroll. It works beautifully. Like my staff can claim an expense on their mobile phone, and it just flows through nicely. That to me is where I see expense management should really be living. It should be within the payroll solution. It should be there. But if Dex can find a way to make this, maybe work with someone like Cresco or someone like that, where they can actually make it so you can actually, reimburse your staff quicker and easier. It doesn't have to go through payroll. That I could be interested in and could be more beneficial to us. And again, for the for clients, if they had that feature where expense management could be done outside of payroll, again, maybe more interested and more excited about that. But does it look like it's got that sort of features? Does it look like that's where it's going with it, or is it just standard expense management solution, a few reports, and add it to payroll if you wish, sort of idea?
Yeah, it's standard Dext, I suppose. It's taking that OCR technology and reading that receipt, which, without being rude to QuickBooks, top trumps QuickBooks because they haven't got the ability to read the receipts to the level of competence that Dex does. But actually, I was just thinking there, what you're saying is what makes the perfect expense solution is OCR technology to read the receipt, followed by an easy way to do payments, which in the form of Cresco. Now, you've got two solutions here. One is you use something like Pleo or Solidio, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Where you give a prepaid card. And the team member uses that. That's what we use in our firm. So we use Pleo and it works fine. But there's not great OCR technology behind it. So team members are still having to spend time plugging in what things were. And I'm still having to categorize. But the other solution that I've just thought of is concerning Apron.
Yes.
So we know Apron's got great OCR technology because it's already picking out bank details from invoices. We know it's got payment solutions because that's what it's there for. Does that mean actually Apron are set? So if you don't want the prepaid card solution, actually, do we think Apron could storm the industry with an expense app? So your employees go out, take pictures of receipts. Apron's OCR is really powerful. It could read that data, and then it uses their payment platform to then deliver the payments, which you get notified of and you authorize.
And could we go one step further that and use their approval solution? And in some circumstances, we don't need to do expense reimbursement. We could just approve to be paid directly from our, things like exam fees or hotel bookings or something, where they don't need to be straight away. It's not that they've already had to make that payment there and then. If it was a case they had to get approval before they could make a tap to pay or something like that, would be ludicrous, right? But if they could wait half an hour or so for it to go through, for that approval to come through, that could be quite powerful as well, couldn't it? And let's turn it on the head. It's not just purely reimburse expenses, but actually let's let them pay directly from our funds, but with an approval solution.
Yeah, I think that could be a solution. So, Apron, if you're out there, you know where we are.
Or Cresco, if Cresco wants to add OCR.
Yeah, Cresco, if you've got OCR, you know where we are. We take checks for these ideas. Bounty bars for Aaron, Mars bars for me. We're not overly expensive.
Road vouchers if you really want to push it.
Yeah. Road vouchers would come in very handy. That is that's an expensive hobby we're getting into there. But it's all right because the delay on road products coming into the UK at the moment is so high that we've got time to make savings. Right. So so that was the news really. Of Dex has launched an expense management platform. It's It's okay. I think it's better than someone having to sit and fill out a spreadsheet, attach images, and submit that. I think it's a step in the right direction. But yeah, I think what we've just discovered there is potentially a dream solution with Apron or, Cresco if they had OCR type things.
So, question to you regarding Dex then, with their bookkeeping solution or whatever they're calling it, and now their expenses.
MTD ITSA one.
Yeah. And now their expense solution, are they starting to build out, and we now have to call it an FMS, financial management solution, although I hate that term. Are they starting to build out the core components for a full-blown Dex bookkeeping, Dex QBO, Dex Zero, whatever they want to call it? Is that their next play? Is this?
I don't know. I don't know if they know what their direction is right now. I think they might be a bit lost. That's the feel I get from these random releases. Personally, I think the expense market is completely and utterly, I think the pain point's over exaggerated. I don't think there's as much money in that market as they think there is in the UK. In the US, it seems to be a very different market space. But in the UK, I don't think it's as big a problem as people, these softwares like us to believe it is. But yeah, like expense management, when I think expense management, I'm thinking people like in big firms, big companies. So Dex are going, right, here's OCR for bookkeepers and accountants and businesses that are doing their own internal stuff. Then they're going and talking to your local decorator and bricky and plumber and electrician for MTD ITSA. And then they're going straight back to talking to the big businesses that need expense claims. It's a bit jarring, very different markets, and I'm not convinced they know where they want to play at the moment.
Yep. We've had some updates in chat, haven't we?
Yep,
Roz has joined us. Hello,
morning, Roz.
Nice to see you.
Always a pleasure.
LinkedIn user, I need to jump on a call. This content of the podcast is very interesting. Is the recording available here? It certainly is. It goes live on a Wednesday at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock on the podcast service of your choice, or just watch any of the platforms we've got. In fact, if you're sat here watching Johann's LinkedIn, then as soon as it finishes, it'll be available on demand when you need it. Kirsty says, had a play with Apron, loved the reading bank feature. Making the payment by Santander was a bit awkward, not so slick. We'll keep trying. Have you had any other issues like that one?
So these payment problems aren't Apron's fault. It's in the same way Cresco are having problems with bulk payments. It is the banks. The government brought in legislation for open banking. The mission of open banking was to deliver the same standards of features and usability across all banks in the UK. It has failed miserably because none of the banks are quite doing what, Metro Bank's not even turned the bloody thing on. It's a legal requirement. And what's happening to Metro Bank? Nothing really. So yeah, it's a challenge for any software provider because of consistency. Like if you're using some of the high street banks, then Cresco can deliver standing orders. It can deliver bulk payments. But then if you're using Starling Bank or any of the main challenger banks, they can't do that. And this is our biggest headache as a firm is we want to spin off a service, but it's got to be delivering a service that is deliverable to not necessarily all, but the majority of our clients.
Exactly.
And when you're trying to encourage a client to use a new service, you don't want to be stopped every 2 minutes by, oh, hang on, what bank are you with? Does it work? Does this bit work? Does that bit work? It's just not good enough from the bank's point of view. But yeah, if you're using Santander is not an overly intuitive payment experience. You need codes and remember the 8th, 10th, and 1st character of your password. And now I'm going to send you a 6-digit code. And yeah, it's not great. Whereas I have used Apron's payment facility to send about 15 payments all in one go via Starling. No problems at all.
Same with Revolut. I've got video on it. Worked beautifully. Yeah.
One problem, Starling flagged it as fraud because of the size of the amount of money going out. But that's fine. That's that's Starling doing
Yeah.
their job and going,
If
that's
anything,
a bit of a
that's
large
that's
amount of money that you've
reassurance,
never
isn't
sent to someone before.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I was happy with that. But yeah, Roz said scanning to bookkeeping software as an expense and approving on Apron to pay. Loved that idea. Yeah, I think it's a great solution, Roz. We're really impressed with Apron so far. And it seems to be fixing the problem for a larger part of our client base than we have managed to find a solution to so far. Then we've got a LinkedIn user saying, thanks, chaps. Have a wonderful week. And to you, Mr. or Mrs. LinkedIn user. Kirsty says, yep, blaming Santander. Free when I set up 15 years ago. Yeah, but
typical accountant, that isn't it? Typical accountant response.
Yeah. And Paul also agrees the banks are really dragging their feet on tech and open banking. I just think it's ridiculous that we brought in legislation to bring the standards of banking up to a certain point and no one's enforcing it. Like,
I mean, we're better than we were. Think back when open banking first came out and we had that whole, rigmarole of, was it Lloyd's where you had to send a paper authorization over to them, print it off, sign this, send it over again. And pre that, back to your point about having to know all the codes and stuff, that used to be a daily occurrence or weekly or monthly occurrence for clients actually going in, getting their little scanning thing in and putting the numbers in.
And it still is.
So we progressed to a point, but yeah, we're just not there yet, are we?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, open banking is part of the headache for software providers at the moment, to say the least. But yeah, right. Okay, let's move on. Speaking of banking and legislation and all of that good stuff, I love these little tangents. They're fantastic. So
segues,
that's the one. So let's segue into cryptocurrency. And you may have seen there's a report out from the government. It wasn't very favorable for cryptocurrencies, was it? So if you've not seen this report, basically a group of MPs have now delivered a report on their opinions of cryptocurrency. To say it was condemning and damning was an understatement. Basically, they have recommended that cryptocurrency that's not backed by certain financial bodies should be deemed as gambling. So by investing in Bitcoin, you're not investing in a stock or anything like that. You are gambling your money. So yeah, an interesting point of view. I mean, you and I were saying off air, Aaron, this was the UK government's opportunity to be quite forward thinking and, potentially, yes, make some legislation to make sure that what we've seen in the last 9 months doesn't happen again or as severely. But it was an opportunity to embrace a change. And yeah, they have they have not gone down that route at all, have they? They have basically said anyone that's investing in crypto is a gambler. It should be deemed as gambling. It should be subject to all the same rules and regulations as any gambling, whether that's stocks and shares on apps, whether that's going to the local betting shop and placing money on a horse, whatever it is, that is what they've deemed it as being. Yeah, thoughts on this, Aaron?
Well, I mean, first of all, quick off the mark, aren't they, government? I mean, like, when were we talking about crypto? I mean, we even turned up to Accountex and there was no crypto or very few crypto apps being showcased, was there? Whereas the year before, every other stand was crypto related, right?
Yeah.
So to say that crypto has fallen off the radar and is not quite that hot topic anymore is an understatement, right? But government being the government, they're quick off the mark, quote unquote, to come up with their thing. And of course it was gambling. Like that was obvious, right? That was an obvious point of contention. Like the fact it wasn't regulated, the fact that we could see these big gains and we knew at some point that was going to crash at any point. I think everyone knew it was gambling, and like we've already said, like you've already mentioned, the only opportunity I thought from this was a chance for us to be a little bit different and approach it in a different way and have a chance to, maybe adopt it in some form. But yeah, that's never going to happen. And like I think Kimberly's just said here, with the fact that they're classing it as gambling, does that mean that means it's completely tax free and we shouldn't have to worry about including it on a tax return going forward?
I mean, that's actually an interesting thought, though, isn't it? Because originally they were all talking, government and HMRC wanted to know crypto gains because they thought, taxability, there's capital gains here, we'll tax that. But now, I suppose, now they've seen what's happened in the last 9 months, are they now thinking, actually, you're more likely to lose money than gain it? And we don't want you offsetting that loss as a capital gains loss against other profits, because that's going to reduce our taxable income. So actually, for that reason, by making it gambling, it's probably saving us money rather than making us losing us money at the moment. So yeah, interesting to keep an eye on this going forward, I think. Yeah, and when I was reading the articles about this, it didn't look like they really called very many witnesses. I mean, the government has the power to call anyone they want as a witness to these panels to help educate and inform the outcome of the report. And I think they just went off the media hype and said, no, this is gambling. It's all wrong. Unless it's regulated, we can't do anything about it. Move on.
Yeah. It was very much a case that they were forced to do something and talk about it. They didn't want to at all. They didn't want to be involved, did they? Let's be honest. Like, it's too messy for them to get involved. Even if they wanted to clamp down on it, they didn't really have the power to do that, did they? Let's be honest. It's so unregulated that there is no way that everyone has been recording their crypto gains that have happened in the past. They may have more incentive now that there are losses. You're right. Maybe that's why suddenly they've had this let's change the legislation. Let's make it different. Let's make it so that they can't claim those losses, because I imagine people are going to be more incentivized to claim that loss that could be offset against something else than they would have done, first time in their life having to do a tax return and put it through. So
yeah, I mean,
you can kind of
sold your property for 100,000, but you've lost 50k in crypto, then of course you want to offset that.
Makes sense, then, doesn't it? Yeah, exactly. So,
but what we should make very clear at this point is that this is just a report from a group of MPs. It is not change of legislation. The report could influence the change of legislation going forwards, but as of this moment in time, we continue reporting crypto losses and gains as capital losses and gains until something is announced later on. Just be very clear before we get
based on the timeline we've got now, I'd say 2028, or is that too ambitious?
Will HMRC have built a computer that can plug into the internet by then? But yeah, so yeah, Paul's just commented as well in the comments. That's interesting timing. Does this mean we should be changing our approach for capital gains? Potentially, but as I say, Paul, it's just a report. I think it indicates the direction we could expect them to take. But until then, and until they tell us when those rules come in to force, treat it as you go, as you do today. There's no change in the way we treat it at the moment.
Don't be shocked if they do.
Yes, don't be shocked if they do. Plan ahead. Another nice little segue there. So HMRC being inadequate and useless. The HMRC are out to help us accountants and bookkeepers even more. And to do that, they're going to close down the VAT registration helpline. I don't know about you, Aaron, but I've lost count the amount of VAT registrations we've put in the last 12 months where we've actually had to phone them to say, did you process this? You've not sent any mail out. Like, we're still chasing a VAT registration from July 2022. Like, yet they're going to close down the helpline so they can put more staff, allegedly, into the processing of registrations. Yeah. It's just HMRC all over, isn't it? It's getting closed. Everything's getting closed down. God forbid you want direct contact. Yeah. What else can we say? What are your thoughts, Aaron?
I think what's frustrating me about this one is, again, it's all about timing, isn't it? So HMRC's got this big clampdown on e-commerce platforms, your eBays, your Amazons, and all that sort of stuff. And they've done this whole, well, it's joint liable now. So if someone sells on the eBay platform or Amazon or whatever it's going to be, technically eBay and Amazon are now have the potential of being jointly liable for that VAT. So obviously these platforms are then really nervous now and they're really scared. So one of the problems we've had a lot of our clients at the moment is that the 85,000 threshold that most people are working towards and most people kind of understand and they get grips with and they can figure out and plan accordingly if they need to, well, that doesn't apply to these online services, these marketplaces. So what we've got is a lot of clients who are, not at 85,000. Maybe they're, maybe eBay's got a bit nervous and at 60,000 they've capped them and they've said that. And what they do with these marketplaces, they will refuse and stop you selling on those platforms until you apply that VAT number. So in our case, in the will of the world, the best tax planning you can do and everything else, most of the time with VAT, you can kind of slowly get to that number, maybe get a little bit close to it, maybe, just in time, you'll go and get that application. No, back in mind, it probably take 30 days or so to go through. Absolutely fine. But now it's very much reacting all the time because eBay or Amazon have stopped them from selling on these platforms. So then we've got to go and get that registration in sooner rather than later. And that's where most of our issues lie with the VAT registration at the moment, because sometimes it could be 90 days to get done, and that's 90 days of a client not being able to actually sell. That is a huge issue. And they're jumping on social media and they're putting backlash on and blaming their accountant and everything else that goes with it because of the fact that it's in an absolute mess. So if they know that there's this whole, problem with the registration at the moment, and there's issues and everything else, and how can they then decide that logically, let's get rid of one of the only helplines we're actually utilizing at the moment, and we're actually, properly having to use it? Just timing yet again, isn't it? I think their argument is that they've got this fancy new portal solution where you can upload stuff to and all that stuff, but it doesn't work, does it? Let's be honest, it's not actually doing what it needs to do. So whatever, it'll just mean we're going to clog up the normal VAT line now, aren't we? And it'll be even more of a delay on getting those sort of answers going forward.
Yeah, definitely. It's and you're right that the online software things are a nightmare because I've got a client that's got like £66 worth of YouTube revenue, and all their monetization stuff's been turned off until they produce all these documents. But then you send documents to YouTube, and because they're a US-based company with US-based staff, they haven't got a clue what any of the UK documents mean or look like. And then they challenge you on whether they're the right documents. It's like, well, of course they're the right documents. I'm telling you the right documents. Like, yeah, like we've got a client who uses Shopify, trundling along absolutely fine. VAT registration's all there. They've now decided, actually, we need to check you're a genuine company. So instead of going onto company's house to check the registration, they want letters from us, proof of accounts, all of this other stuff. Well, they want proof of accounts, yet they're less than a year old. It's like, yeah, right. You've got the VAT registration, you've got everything else, and they've stopped all revenue going to him. So he can still make his sales, and he's still sending out products, but he's not making, none of that revenue is being deposited to him until this is matters resolved.
And he still has to pay his fees, I assume, to the platform.
It's still got to pay all the, yeah, like, and you're just like, how? That's his only payment gateway. All of his money in has now stopped because they are now trying to police it because HMRC have told them they've got to, and they haven't got a clue what they're trying to police. So yeah, absolute nightmare. But we've got, as I say, we've got VAT registrations. We literally just got an answer last week regarding one that was made in October last year that we've chased. That company's actually gone and changed its legal structure since. So it went from a partnership when it registered. It's now got to the point where actually they're better off being a limited company. But we couldn't do that until the partnership VAT return was finalised. so that we can then transfer it. It's just a nightmare. And HMRC closing these helplines isn't helping anybody. Like, apart from themselves, require less staffing, allegedly. But yeah. Right. After that rant, what have we got coming in on the comments? So Kimberly is in agreement with us. It's very true and a total nightmare. Peter has said HMRC equals I'm not here at the moment. Please leave a message after the beep, but then forget to turn the beep on. And Paul said he's got a couple of VAT transfers for individuals who went limited. God knows how we're going to solve that without being able to call HMRC. Yeah, it's VAT transfers are an absolute nightmare. Like during COVID, I think I waited 2 years for VAT transfer to be rejected.
Yeah, most of the time we just say, look, what's the benefit of it? Let's just set up a new scheme. It's just, it's
deregister and start again.
Yeah, exactly. And that shouldn't be the answer. That should not be the way we advise our clients. But sometimes we've got to go, well, it may not be the most tax efficient or it may not be the most beneficial from an admin point of view, but trust us, like if you want to transfer your VAT return, you could have a period of just inactivity if you're not careful. So
yeah, definitely. So no nice segue to this one, unfortunately. But our next topic is Xero launched their financial year-end results last week. Now, software financial results isn't something we're overly interested in normally, is it, Aaron? We won't normally go, oh, hello, let's go and have a look at this. But I think with
billions that they made this time around. That's what we probably would be talking about, right?
Say again, sorry.
Normally, we'll be talking about how many billions they've made from us paying their software fees this time around.
Yeah. But yeah, in this case, we wanted to look at the Xero and we wanted to chat about it, didn't we? The Xero financial results, because the impression is that they've perhaps been a bit tight on cash recently. 800 redundancies. The XeroCon has gone to one event in the world a year. I would argue I don't think they were any smaller at Accountex this year, but I don't think they were as flamboyant and in your face as they have been in previous years. So we thought we'd have a look at the financial year-end results for Xero. And as you might expect, whoever wrote this report and the speech that the CEO gave would do very well in politics. Like they've got a spin doctor in there.
Question. Or did they just throw it through an AI generator? Bob's your uncle.
Question is, here are our financial results. Make these sound positive.
Yeah. Please.
At which point, ChatGTP has given out a huge mammoth report, and they've gone, yeah, that'll do. Because they haven't got enough staff now to actually write the report.
No, they use Swift, didn't they? It is Swift, isn't it? Their little AI generated report thing.
Oh, is it? Yeah, Swift
Analytics. Yeah.
So yeah, lots and lots of positive stuff. So operating revenue increased 28% globally. This is so how much of that's just price increases? Because we saw some of those in the last year. I mean, even this number is a bit suspect in any software. I should point out my speculation here is all software providers, not just Xero. But they're saying total number of subscribers is increased by 470,000 across the globe. But we were saying off air that could just be 47,000 accountants buying 100 licenses each and not populating them with any client's information. Like it's not a true measure of how many active live businesses are using their software. Yeah. And that same concept goes to all software providers in the accounting industry. They're very good at saying how many subscribers they've got, but it's not actually how many live subscribers they've got. It's just how many licenses they have that are active. Yeah. Whether they are populated with live businesses or not is a different matter.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember as well, Xero Go got released. So how many of that 470,000 are people just downloading Xero Go to have a go with it? Because I'd
free.
imagine everyone would have had a look and see what it is. It was free, right? So why wouldn't you have a go?
Because it's free, you've not cancelled it.
Yeah, exactly. But is that reflective? It's difficult to say. But 3.74 million does seem like a healthy starting point, though. Or subscriber basis. That's what they're up to, isn't it? So that should be a positive tick on their results.
Yeah, I mean, then you go through the rest, and gross margin remained flat at 87.3. EBITDA increased, but let's face it, we all know what we can make all sorts of things happen with an EBITDA, can't we? I wouldn't measure anyone on an EBITDA. Operating income grew by 61%. Interestingly, the net loss grew. So the net loss went from 113 million. Went from 7 million New Zealand dollars to 113 million New Zealand dollars. That probably explains why they've suddenly had to make some redundancies. Like, if you're going to add 104 million New Zealand dollars loss to your performance, then you need to start making some savings. Anything to glean from it?
Well, what's missing there for me is like, surely if they want to put a positive spin on this, surely they should be talking about their R&D push.
Yep.
Like, where's the mention of that? And that was our worry, wasn't it? Like, when they started talking about redundancies, when they started talking about reducing everything else, our first initial point was, okay, so what does that mean for future enhancements? Because, for me, if you're going to start cutting costs and starting to absorb it and starting to really close it down, then to me that means you've kind of built your solution and it's out the door, and all you're then going to do is just maintain it. Whereas in this industry, what we're going through at the moment, we need to see, it's for our benefit, selfishly as accountants and for our clients, it's for our benefit to see Xero, Sage, QuickBooks just absolutely go for it leather and keep innovating every single year. That's what we need from the industry, right? And when you look at these financial results here, they don't mention anything about R&D or what they're looking to bring in. I mean, maybe they have a different take on it, but for me, gross margin, I would expect within the gross margin, within that cost of the cost of sales, should be some form of development cost, and there should be that element there. And if 87% of their gross margin, profit margin, or if their gross profit is 87%, so how much development they're putting in there doesn't sound like a lot, does it?
I mean, it's quite cheap just to change formats of font in a report, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, release a new reporting feature. Yeah, exactly. Or Xero Go can't have been an expensive. Maybe I'm completely wrong here, but in comparison to QuickBooks Advanced or QuickBooks Accounts Production Software, or whatever it's going to be, it's got to that's got to be one of the issues. And that in fairness to them, and this is where HMRC have got to kind of see. Got to take some responsibility. Some of their development costs will have gone down to MTD ITSA, and that would not have been an insignificant amount, right? So, which is why Xero Go got, and maybe that is kind of part and parcel of their Xero Go development costs being put through. So, and they've been burnt by that. So the fact of the matter is HMRC are now going to have to really beg and borrow for software providers to get more, to get involved in MTD ITSA going forward. So maybe some of it is that they've plowed or a load of development into MTD ITSA that's now not going to come to fruition, and that's why they've got nothing else to show for it. But we need something from them. We need to see something. We had Ryan, didn't we, on for We Have Cool Friends, and he, it was perfect timing for us because QuickBooks Advanced just got announced at the or re-announced or re-talked about at the QuickBooks Connect and talked about there. But his biggest fear was that, well, there's no even murmurings of that sort of going up the chain with Zero to bigger clients or bigger businesses. And that's kind of where they need to be now. They need to start repositioning and looking upwards, don't they? But with these sort of numbers, it doesn't look like they'll have that opportunity. I mean, it doesn't seem it. And definitely there'll be no room for acquisitions based on that as well, will they? That's not something that's going to be viable for them.
Well, that, and if you're a capital investor and you're giving money to Zero to do stuff, if you look at how many of their acquisitions they've actually closed down in the last few years because they were dead ducks, like, yeah, it doesn't fill you with confidence, does it, as an investor? But yeah, so I think overall the outcome is that, yeah, that perhaps they're not doing as financially well as you'd hope they would be, and that's potentially why we are seeing the changes that we're seeing. So I'm just looking at the comments quickly, and Paul's asked us any comments on the roadshows. Spoke to Zero at Accountex. They told me they were going to do some roadshows. Also noticed QuickBooks have started to announce QuickBooks Connect again. So QuickBooks have got 2 roadshow type things going on in the Midlands kind of area this year.
Manchester folk, they're not going to be happy.
Further north, then. The problem is they call it the North, and I live in Edinburgh. Even that's not north. Like when you look at how far north of Scotland you can go. But yeah, so my issue with Zero roadshows has always been it's sell, sell, sell. Sell the Zero product, justify why you should only be using Zero products, etc. Whereas when I go to free agent roadshows or QuickBooks roadshows, I've been to modular roadshows, all sorts. And it's been very much of, this is who we are, this is what we do. Now that has put you in front of some experts that A, will teach you how to use the product, but B, will teach you about insights to the industry and stuff. Like, it's very informative type things. But when you go to Zero, it's just like the last Zero roadshow I went to in Edinburgh. So it was only a 10-minute walk for me to get to it. I walked out at 11 o'clock because I saw the whole agenda, and it was just basically why you should only be using Zero, and you should have your whole practice and every client using Zero payroll, which is no Zero expenses, Zero projects. And it's just like, I'm not going to spend my day being sold to. I will come, and I don't mind being sold to a little bit, but I want to be coming to these events and being educated.
Yeah.
So Zero didn't have any special guests or anything. Whereas you go to free agent, they're bringing in accountants that are using the product and talking about the latest trends. You go to QuickBooks, they're bringing in accountants and they're talking about the latest trends. They're bringing in motivational speakers, etc. And when they get desperate, they ask Aaron to turn up. They've not asked me, but they know my thoughts on going to Manchester. So when you have to tackle Transpennine Express trains to get anywhere, it's just a non-starter for me, really. But yeah, and as Ross says, anything north of Watford is north for her. It's an interesting perception of what's north, isn't it? I suppose anyone in Brighton thinks everything's north. But yeah, so yeah, I've not heard anything about Zero roadshows going on. Have you seen anything, Aaron?
No, but it comes back to it, right? Like, the hard sell for me, I don't mind being sold a product, or at least the perception being sold a product, if it's some fancy new piece of development, and it could be anything, right? If they're coming at me on all the talking,
it could be anything. It doesn't matter really.
If it's shiny, I'm interested, right? I'll watch YouTube videos. I'll do it all. But that to me is where these roadshows should be aimed at. It's right. What's new in the product? You weren't interested in us last year. Why should you be interested in this year? Well, we've got X, Y, Z. And that's where Zero probably are nervous about doing those sort of things. Like, what do they talk about? Oh, we'll be ready for MTD ITSA. Okay. We've had this new report feature. Again, yeah. it's difficult, isn't it? And like we said, like we need them to be innovating. We need them to be pushing those boundaries, because innovation just breeds that whole opportunity for us and competition to better the other products. So I think my final parts on there, I think at least it gives you confidence that they're not going anywhere. That doesn't seem like that's the issue. We don't seem like that's going to be a problem, and that is what we need to hear. Like, you don't want to have people being nervous around using the software and nervous recommending the software and nervous for the clients who are on the software. So not going anywhere. That's good. But without the innovation, it just feels like they'll be treading water, and I'm not sure treading water. And look what happened with Sage when they just treaded water, right? They almost went out of relevance at one point. So fingers crossed for them that they've, this is just a slight blip for them, and they can find ways of developing. Maybe they need to borrow the client engager team to build some products from Quick.
We're busy. So, although our job's getting, did you see Centre this week? Last week, Centre went down 4 days out of 5.
Wow.
It's now got to the point, I think some Centre users, how like when you're in someone's head office, they've got like so many days or weeks or months for health and safety since we had an accident. I think they've got like a minute clock as to how many minutes since we last broke.
Does that mean Iris ran out of coal then? Have they run out of coal in there?
We did stop mining it in the 80s, didn't we? So yeah, the reserves are probably a little low. Right, now we're going to get sued for that. Let's move on.
We've got one more from Roz.
I also want to see innovators at your roadshows, Zero. With new products that innovate, both QB and Zero could do better on that. Very true.
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah.
We only really QuickBooks and Zero and Free Agent, to be fair, which have a very small group of softwares that plug into them, but they only really give the space on these roadshows to large existing partners who probably already have the majority of the market. They don't bring in the startups and the innovators like we saw at Accountex this year, where they've got startup zones and stuff.
And for me, like, I will always remember QuickBooks Roadshow, 2018, was it 2019, whichever one it was, and they announced the Go Cardless integration, and I yelped. I was like, yes, come on, like that's the sort of thing they want to be talking about. And at that point, Go Cardless were a nobody. No one knew who they were. They had no thing. They were at the startup phase. But that's what they want to be announcing, right? Like, they want to be telling people, look at this partner we've got. Look at what they've been able to do for you. Make your life easier, etc., etc. We can't say too much, but we know why the partnership relationships with QuickBooks aren't as what they should be. But that's something that needs to be changed, both QuickBooks and Zero.
Yeah.
And even if that's what Zero came with, then like, look, Zero itself's not really innovated that much, or we've not got that much to talk about, but look what all our partners are doing. Like, that would be enough to bring people in, right? And they could make it like an app roadshow almost. Like, that could be a spin on them. And they could even get those apps to pay for the roadshow itself. There we are. We can solve both problems for you. But exactly. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah. And Paul said, yeah, he would love to see people like Katana, which I only found out about doing some research for a client, only to find out the client's already been using them for the past year. Oh dear.
Well, I suppose as a segue, isn't that what digital accounting show is all about?
It is. I was going to use the segue of talking about Accountex. So in our last piece for today, we've only got a few minutes left, but Accountex have released their figures, and they reckon they had 10,295 people attend Accountex over 2 days, which is a record for them, which probably means it's the record for the UK accounting conference scene, because that is the biggest event in the market. So yeah, 10,295, that is incredible amount of people. And
just remember, though, we were 6 of those people, but it's still amazing numbers.
But yeah, that is a huge count, and I think that shows how many people in the industry are actually getting out and looking at the future of the industry. But then that pulls into question the validity of other shows, shall we say? So, like, if Accountex London is knocking out over 10,000 people, Accountex Manchester, I don't know what numbers they're expecting there. It's normally 2,000 to 3,000. It's a one-day event.
Is it really that many?
I think so. It's what they say on the
really?
website. Okay. But then you look at Digital Accountancy Show later in a couple of weeks, 2,000 people. You look at Accounting Web, brand new location in Birmingham, brand new event hall, which is bigger. Can they fill it? Digital Accountancy Show, they've just moved to Battersby Power Station. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
It's a huge venue, and they're very excited about it. It's just, are the numbers big enough for it at the moment? I don't know. And then as software providers, so like at Client Engager, we're sat here looking at all these events going, well, which one do we invest in? Because to do them all, you need to be one of the big players.
Yes.
To do them all, if you wanted to go to Accountex, Accountex North, Accounting Web Live, Digital Accountancy Show, that's probably £30,000 before you even look at hotels, travel, food, drink, hospitality, branding, etc. That's just for your floor space. It's a lot of money. And when you're sat there as a small accounting software, brand new startup or something, and you're looking at your budgets, do anyone else's numbers stack up to justify paying to go to anything else compared to Accountex? Possibly not, I would say. But yeah, Aaron, what are your thoughts on those numbers, the relevance of other shows, etc.?
I think absolutely phenomenal at 10,000 accountants going down, and that we had a celebration show, didn't we, within this week with Ashley, and we spoke, and Caroline was there, who's part of the team for Accountex. And I think it was you that rightly said that more than anything, it just shows that the industry is going in the right direction. No one was sat there in ties, no one was, shirt and ties. It was people wanting to further their practice, further their, make it easier for their clients and improve their relationships with their clients and everything else. And it was such a good feeling. And, we weren't talking about MTD. We were talking about proper, elements that are going to really bring you practice. And when you look at some of the talks and stuff over there, it was absolutely phenomenal. But I think you're right. I think the other shows, like, this is a big year for Digital Accounting Show, a huge year for them. They were that plucky underdog that, had this really tight knit show, which was brilliant. And we love Digital Accounting Show, and they bring a few differences to it. The lights go down and they try and, they do something different, right? They've got their own brand and their own thing, and we love it. And we love it, what they've done there. But I think some of the charm was the fact it was that smaller arena where we could see all of them. One of the things I loved about it was the fact that your QBOs, zeros, and everything else had the same size stand as everyone else. Like, it was a level playing field. It's not how much money you could throw at it. It's about what you can bring to the table, what you can talk about. And I honestly, like, the QuickBooks stand in that one was all the way in the back. I only went to say hello to them. What I was interested in Digital Accounting Show last year was talking to the rest of the ones, like people I've never heard of, and having those sort of relationships and starting to talk with them and everything else. And that, to me, is what Digital Accounting Show brings. That's a special sauce for it. I'll be completely honest, I'm a little bit skeptical about this big step for them, only because we've seen some, whereas before they used to be really on the ball with, how they treated you, making sure everything was right and everything else. They seem to have dropped a few eggs, and, there seems to be a few things not quite right this time around, and that's worrying at this stage. We always talk about, for us, like, when you first set up a client, make sure you get your name right, make sure you're doing that sort of stuff right. That's ingrained to us as clients, right, as accountants. Like, first impressions mean a lot, and digital accounting show, with them growing so much, they seem to have dropped that a little bit, and they seem to be they're admin errors or admin issues, whatever, right? Tiny little things, but people notice that and people remember that. And I feel like they need to be making sure that as they grow, they don't drop the balls and they don't have those little issues, because that's what people remember it by. So fingers crossed for them that this next step is the right step for them and they're going in the right direction. I'm not 100% convinced on the location as well. I love the fact that it's in they've got this brand spanking new location, but there's only one tube line there and back, and there's no hotels around that area by the looks of it. So let's hope for the best for them. But yeah, we'll see.
It's simple things though, isn't it? Like, because they used to be at Twickenham. No, it didn't.
Was that where it first
Tottenham was? Spurs? No, Spurs Stadium. Tottenham Stadium, right. Which was the most modern, tech-focused stadium in the world at the time.
And were they the first
conference,
or one of the first ones to actually go there, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just in accounting space, but conference-wise.
And I always say, look, when you're looking for premises for your accounting firm, make sure the premises suits your brand.
Yeah.
So if you're an older-fashioned accounting firm, absolutely fine. You can go into one of these old stone buildings with pillars and stuff. That's not an issue. But if you're one of these leading cloud-facing firms, you probably want to be in a metal building, in a glass modern building, not a building next to the lawyer's firm with pillars and stone everywhere. And Tottenham's Stadium suited the brand of digital accountancy show.
Yeah,
I almost think they're going backwards with the power station. Like, I don't know the story of the power station enough. Like, I've just got this big old building, hasn't it? Yeah. So I've just got this big old building that is, arcing back to eons gone by. And
Iris times.
Yeah.
We've just had a joke about Iris having coal. So yeah.
I'm looking forward to going to actually learning what they're doing with that building now and why it's relevant for the digital accountancy show to be there. Because I'm sure there is a relevance. I just don't know what it is yet.
And it's not just because it's bigger.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think we've gone over time, haven't we?
We have, yeah. Right, let's wrap this up then. And thank you very much for everyone that's been interactive in the comments. Loads of comments coming in, as always. If you've got any questions, make sure you stick it on the LinkedIn Linktree post link that has just gone out into all the comments. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us. If you've missed this and you're listening back, try and join us live every Monday morning at 8:30 on any of your favorite social media platforms. We are everywhere because we cluster bomb social media. Aaron, anything coming up this week?
Relatively quiet week this week. Just lots of meetings. So for me, it's that calm before the storm, because roadshow starts a week after, maybe, I think it is. Then we've got digital accounting show. So yeah, it's all going to go mental from now on in. So yeah, I'm looking forward to having. There's a lot in the diary, but it's all sitting at the desk, getting it all done. Not having to do much traveling. So yeah, sounds good to me. What about yourself, Johann?
I'm the same. We've just got a large project come in over the weekend from a client, so we need to crack on with that with short turnaround time. I'm going to have to see some clients as well this week, which I'm looking forward to. Nice. So yeah, all fun and games. But that's everything from us. So rather than take any more of your time on a Monday morning, we will say thank you and goodbye. And join us next week when we will be going through the latest news and headlines for the accounting industry. So thank you very much.
Week.